All right, welcome to episode number 135 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on October the 24th, 2021. My name is Eric. I'm host of the show based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
I'm Alan. I'm a first responder, safety trainer, and overall safety nerd.
I'm Scott, first responder, splitting my time between Southern and Northern Ontario. I like learning things, and I don't accept that things will always carry on the way they have, just because it would be convenient for everybody.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, and general overall handyman.
Hello, guys. I'm Brad from Eastern Ontario. I've been into preparedness in some way since the ice storm of '98. I'm constantly trying to improve myself.
All right, we've got Dr. Alton and Nurse Amy on this evening as well. So Joe Alton, medical doctor, is a physician, medical preparedness advocate, life fellow of the American College of OBGYN, and a retired fellow of the American College of Surgeons. Amy Alton is ARNP and CNM, is an advanced nurse practitioner and certified nurse midwife. Together, they are the New York Times and Amazon best-selling authors of various books, including the Book of Excellence Award winners in medicine, the Survival Medicine Handbook, Alton's Antibiotics and Infectious Disease, and Alton's Pandemic Preparedness Guide. They contribute to magazines like the American Outdoor Guide, Backwoods Home, Off-Grid, Recoil, Survivor's Edge, and others. And their website at doomandbloom.net has over 1,200 articles, podcasts, and videos on medical preparedness. They're also the designers of an entire line of medical kits at store.doomandbloom.net.
Want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? Buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator and or wood gasifier fueled.
If you are enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook. Submit a review on iTunes if you want to. We also want your feedback, good or bad, even just a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Also, check out our new Discord server. Link in the show notes, in the live chat as well, or message any one of us and we can get the link to you.
All right, so we've got some medically prepared content for you in this episode. We're going to start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Next, we're going to let you know what we've done for our preparedness since the last episode. Then we're going to get into the main topic, the Survival Medicine Handbook.
So as everyone has already noticed, Ian is missing tonight. That's because he's trapped under a essentially a cyclone on Vancouver Island. He sent us a note just before the show showing how dark and dismal things are, with the hope that he'll be back again next week. So we wish Ian all the best and glad to see that his preparations are helping him stay warm, dry, and reasonably comfortable under a really nasty situation.
We'll give him a bit of a break tonight.
A little bit.
We'll still cut into him a bit, I'm sure.
What else we got?
Brad, do you have a news article?
You're muted. Brad, you're muted.
Darn.
There you go.
I was moving things around and didn't want to interrupt, so I muted it and I forgot to take it off. There's an article here about the retailers and the store shelves in all over the U.S. that they're facing everything with one item deep, one or two items deep, creating the illusion of full shelves so as to not incite panic and unrest. There was a hashtag going around on Twitter of empty shelves Joe, and then the Twitter cops took it down. I don't know how they do that. I'm not on Twitter, but a lot of people have been going around reporting that the same thing is happening at their stores as well, and this is going to be interesting.
Lower your expectations, everyone.
Stock up now.
On more than just toilet paper.
Nothing wrong with having 1,000 rolls of toilet paper.
All right, Jeff.
So I have an article from the Financial Post. Propane prices have tripled in the last, I'm going to say 6-8 months, and it's probably just going to continue to get worse. Obviously, supply and demand with everything going on with our nice virus there and all of the ships being trapped and all of that stuff. So I don't quite go as far as the article does. It says U.S. markets brace for an Armageddon. I don't think it's going to get that bad, but it's definitely going to be a hit in the pocketbook if you heat or use propane at a fair amount.
Just in time for winter.
Goody, goody.
This is my first year. This is my first winter with a propane furnace. I had an extra tank added on when they installed it, and I'm waiting for them to come and fill it. My last price for fill was 76 cents a liter or something. I'm waiting to see what the price is now. I'm thankful that I've prepaid and I have a credit of like $400 with them, so I'm hoping to gently use that over the winter and not go broke trying to heat my house.
Well, fingers crossed.
Well, the scary thing is if the Line 5 pipeline dispute that we talked about a couple of months ago, it's sort of settled down a little. It's been working its way through the legal system, but it's to the point where Canada has invoked the 1977 Transit Pipelines Treaty, which has never been previously used, to try and settle this rather ugly issue with a fair amount of the fuel supply for Southern Ontario that gets piped through Michigan, and people are scared by the old infrastructure, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one too.
Yeah, interesting times. I've got an article here in regards to a fire on a cargo ship out in BC. So it's under control, which is good, but it's not known how many containers were burned. So going back to Brad's article where the shelves are starting to become bare, well, now we've got container ships on fire at the port. So good times.
Did that ship not also lose about 40 of them into the ocean?
Yep.
Mhm.
Sure did. It sure did. And they're not sure exactly what's in them yet, but there is a lot of hazardous material as far as they know. So it's going to get interesting.
It's going to get worse before it gets better. Well, like container fires like that are always challenging. Put them on a ship where you have, ironically, not a lot of water access. Makes them even worse.
Yep.
And it's not going to help that humongous storm's going through there either. So
That's
Yeah.
it.
All right. Shall we move into what we've done lately for preps?
Absolutely. So tidying up my garage, getting ready for winter, and I was playing a bit with my Faraday box. I hadn't been pleased with it previously. I was getting a little too much signal getting through, but I found a gap with the gasket, some extra conductive tape, and all of a sudden it's giving me performance comparable to my Rapid Survival Faraday bag. So I'm
Look at that.
pleased that has turned out nicely.
It's always good to have something to reference against too.
Exactly.
So, Scott, how do you test that?
So there's all kinds of stuff online. There's the EMP doctor has some great YouTube videos. I was basically just playing podcasts from my phone inside the Faraday box and seeing when it cuts out on my Bluetooth headset. And with the Rapid Survival bag, basically as soon as I close it, it cuts out. With the gap, I was sort of measuring how many feet away I would get before it cut out. And then when I fix that little gap, basically as soon as the lid on the ammo can clicked shut, I would lose the Bluetooth signal. So I can still hear FRS radio static through it, but I have to play around and figure out what frequencies, if it's sort of the higher frequencies of Bluetooth that get filtered out.
Cool. I might give you a call on when I make my Faraday box, you and Jeff as well, to figure out how to do this correctly. But I did. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, not that we want to tip our hand, but I could see us doing a whole episode on Faraday boxes at some point soon.
think that might be in the works.
Sweet. Sweet. So this week I did some more cleanup in my yard, in my shed, getting ready for some winter projects. I went to do a final closing on our tent trailer and found out that the hatch over our vent leaks. So I had a whole bunch of water in there. Spent a few hours cleaning everything up and shut it up, tarped it finally. Have to open it again next week. Finish cleaning everything out. Changed the oil in my van, cleaned out some of the summer stuff, and this week I'll put in some winter stuff and get ready to change my tires out probably next weekend as well, and get ready for that white fluffy stuff that's going to come down and piss everybody off.
Yep, it's coming.
Almost everybody.
Well,
Being the snowmobiler here, almost everybody.
You and my brother are the same. He lives in Newfoundland, and he loves to see the cold weather and the snow come down because he's itching to get his sled out. I'm pretty sure he's got it tuned by now. He's itching to get on the sled and go.
Yeah, I haven't quite got there yet, but it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks tops. So,
Rub it in, Jeff.
yeah. So I got back to work, actually, like Scott did, working on my large Faraday box. I'm presently putting the wheels on it so I can get it around. Got to figure out how to patch up a couple of the holes where they use it to lock it up. Still trying to figure out. I might try and tape over it, or if worst comes to worst, I'm not going to use them. I'll just weld a piece of metal right over top of them. Did my monthly food buy at Costco. Ouch. Anybody who hasn't shopped lately, the prices are through the roof. Finished doing a bunch of yard work. So far, I'm up to 19 bags of leaves, and I'm still going. And for people who were not paying attention at the beginning when I did my intro, Kyle, pay attention. I got my ham license with honors. I am certified.
It's about time.
Certified, all right, Jeff.
Victor Alpha 3 Mike X-Ray Zulu. So that's my ham license.
X-ray.
And I've been on the air a little bit. I only have a handheld, but as things progress, we'll be moving there.
Hey, Rapid Survival is a great source for ham radios. I got a couple, and they're fantastic.
Good for you, Jeff. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Well done, buddy. Well done.
All right. For myself, learned how to drill and set fence posts. So we got 32 of them in on one day, 4x4x10 hemlock posts. They're all in, and they're all still standing a couple of days after putting them in. So that's a good sign. And they're all in a straight line. So I was pretty happy with that, and made a couple of contacts over 2 meters with Jeff. Just kept it quiet so that he could surprise everybody.
Well done, Jeff. Kyle, we can pick on Jeff. He's still old no matter what, regardless of his license status. For myself, I didn't do a whole lot this week. In the midst of
why? Because your back hurt.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But no, I had some family emergencies that were taking a fair bit of my time. But I did have my boiler inspected before the winter. So most like boilers need to be inspected every year. And one of the things I discovered, everybody wait for it, too much carbon monoxide being spewed out by the burner system. So that was it's reassuring that getting it inspected on a regular basis actually is worth the effort. That prevented a whole lot of heartache and headache down the road. So it's being repaired before the heating season gets underway. Also kind of got the truck ready for winter with fluid changes, top ups, put the winter kit on board, rotate out the summer stuff. And that's about it for me.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Do a quick Discord update.
Yeah, we've talked about Discord, the new group we have going on the podcast a couple of times, but it sort of occurred to us that we hadn't done a good job explaining it to anyone who wasn't already on Discord. I joined Discord just because of this. I hadn't been on it previously. Super easy to join, and it's a great format. They have all kinds of different threads for all sorts of topics under our group, our little server. It's quite pleasant to browse, super accessible and easy. It's available 24/7. And anyone is welcome to come join us in the post-show live chat. We just kind of continue chatting about the subjects of the day or whatever else. So we definitely encourage people to sign up and come see what it's about and find some neat resources. I think Eric's been posting the link in the live chats.
Yep, the link is up there now. And yeah, after the show, I hop in while I'm doing the editing and stuff. So if anybody's got questions or things they want to talk about, I'm happy to throw my 2 cents in. But with that, let's move into the main topic. But before we do, a quick disclaimer. All the information and opinions voiced are for entertainment purposes only and do not represent medical advice or for anything but in post-apocalyptic settings. Please seek modern and standard medical care wherever and whenever it is available. But with that, let's move into the main topic. And we're going to be talking about Dr. Alton and Nurse Amy's new book. It's the 4th edition. And we've got a whole bunch of questions for you guys. So we'll just start firing away and we'll let you answer them.
Sounds good. You know, what I'd like to do, Eric, if that's possible, I know that Ian isn't here today, but he sent, he was kind enough to send a few questions. I think a couple of them are really good ways to start off our conversation about our new book, and of course a lot of survival medicine topics that I think are going to be important. And
Absolutely.
so I want to read just a couple of the questions and give answers to them. And
Perfect.
the first question was what led us to actually putting out a latest edition. We've got a perfectly good 3rd edition that was #1 in its categories for so long, including the day that we published the 4th edition. So why would we actually do it? Well, our 3rd edition had passed its 5th year in print, and for medical books, it's that's getting a little long in the tooth. A good interval to publish updates. We have so much new information that we wanted to add in, so many articles and stuff that we had, and new topics that we had added on to our website, that we wanted to put it into an anthology of all of the medical information that we have in the Survival Medicine Handbook. So it couldn't be just 10 sections like the 3rd edition. Now we have it out to 35 different sections because we didn't want 10 sections being too general. So we wanted to separate things out in such a fashion that you get a lot of detail. So now we talk a lot about anatomies. We talk about specific disasters that lead to specific injuries. We, for example, one thing we didn't talk about in detail was crush injuries in the last book. Now we talk about them in detail. We talk about bleeding issues in more detail, infectious issues in more detail, orthopedic issues in more detail. We wanted to add more natural options, so we greatly expanded those sections. Plus, new items are always coming out in medicine. So things, gosh, a lot of new tourniquets are out since the last book, so we added them in there. A lot of new hemostatic hemostatic dressing brands,
new tourniquets,
IT clamps are new. Zip stitches
I actually
are new.
brought an IT clamp with me. I'll have to get it while you're talking.
And lots of other things that just weren't around.
Nursing care.
When the last book was published, and Amy put in an entire section on nursing care, and
which no other first aid book, no survival medicine book who used our name has in their section, because nobody thinks about that. But that's the whole point of long-term care, is that your patient's injured. I mean, if they can get up and walk around and go out and do gardening and whatever, they're not truly injured. They're, hurt. But somebody who's truly injured, who's truly bedridden, needs nursing care. And there's very few people out there, including all doctors, no offense, paramedics, EMTs, emergency room doctors, whoever you are, unless you're actually a nurse who does either home health or floor nursing, who understands all of the concepts of how to take care of someone who's stuck in bed. And it's not a matter of just bringing them a glass of water or a food tray every couple of hours. There's a lot of things that go into caring for someone who is not terribly mobile, who has limited mobility or no mobility at all, preventing bed sores, how to wash them, how to take care of them, how to do vital signs. I mean, there's so much that goes into caring for someone. And when you don't have that hospital to drop them off at, guess who it lands on? The person who's taking care of them, or the
family
group.
medic.
Exactly. Or the group of people. And you need to know all of these things, or these people are not going to get better. They're going to get sicker.
Which leads us to the actual true question. Do you believe, does your audience believe that there is a chance that there may be some event that may occur that may lead to a long-term lack of access to modern medicine? And if that's the concern, then this is the book for you. If it's not, you have no belief that anything like that could possibly ever happen, then a first aid book is perfectly fine.
Right.
Now, another question
Just
that
want to show the actual.
the actual book, yes.
The actual book. I actually have one. This is the new cover.
Right.
Totally redesigned.
We had to actually make it, and it's now an 8x10
That's
book.
huge.
And
there's the back cover.
700 and something pages, 8x10 book. The last one was 6x9, and it would have been probably 1,000, 1,200 pages.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, another question Ian asked that surprised me a little bit was, now that the option of fish antibiotics is not there in Canada, at least, any idea for alternative sources? Well, if you're talking about Thomas Labs, you're right. There was significant pressure placed on them to discontinue their line of fish mocks type products. But there are dealers that still exist that do have DHL international shipping rates and USPS international priority shipping. Fish mocks, fishflex.com, which is sort of funny. It's now an anachronistic name. Because those products don't exist anymore.
Because the name of it doesn't exist anymore.
But they still sell fish antibiotics made by other companies. And I've looked at these antibiotics, that they are indeed the real thing. But the thing is that it's important for you to know that they will not be. I don't believe that these will be available. What's the name of that one?
This one is the Aquacept. This
Aquacept.
is
so that's Keflex. Or Cephalexin.
Keflex with a new type of label.
So they're still available. We just recently bought this just to make sure that they were available and that we didn't need to give our DA license or anything like that.
Right. And they're real. You guys look them up on pill identification.
And
they're actual human antibiotics, a whole bottle of them.
So the problem that we have, and the reason why I think it's important if you are going to buy these, then you should probably begin to buy these and stockpile them soon, because the FDA has indicated that they will soon institute an increased stewardship over the use of veterinary medications in the future. And they've already begun with a number of food-producing livestock products. These are mostly ornamental fish and bird.
Hobby fish, your goldfish.
Hobby bird products.
Who's going to take their goldfish to a vet? I'd like to know.
Right.
For what, a $50 visit? Right. Here's my goldfish. Okay, thank you for my $5 antibiotic. I appreciate it.
So now I want to say one last question.
It's going to be a lot of flushed goldfish.
He sent me, thank you for sending me a lot of questions.
Nope.
Ian sent me one question that I thought was important. He was a little reluctant to ask me. He said optional to answer, but the question was, since your last visit, SARS-CoV-2 has morphed into a semi-permanent fixture. Indeed, it has become endemic. Other than the Freedom in Florida, which, by the way, our main home is in the state of Florida, many jurisdictions see no end in sight. How political versus medical has this issue become? Well, that's something that I think is very important to talk about. We're lucky to spend most of our time in balmy South Florida.
Yay, DeSantis.
But mandates are serious issues in a lot of areas. Now, the problem is the concept of what they call following the science, almost become a cliche. You're going to hear the medical experts always talking about following the science. And governments oftentimes make the claim that they are only following the science when it comes to the current pandemic. Now, what few people really realize is the extent to which the science may be manipulated to match a particular agenda. Instead of survival of the fittest data, it may be survival of what fits a political agenda.
That's funny. I got it.
Politicians' faith in the opinions of their medical experts serves a purpose for them, and that is to separate them, the politicians, from the blame for faulty recommendations. Why? We were just following the science at the time. But the goals of a medical expert, even an unbiased one, is different than that of a politician. The medical expert is concerned about preventing every imaginable bad outcome that could occur from the presence of a particular virus. That means that they're going to always recommend measures strict enough to achieve that goal, even if it means locking every citizen into their own airtight bubble. And that is something that,
like they did in
we've
Australia.
experienced. Right. And you see that's an extreme case of that is in Australia, but there are many states in the United States that are following similar guidelines. Now, this in some cases is due to idealistic, but sometimes I think impractical motives. Other cases, these measures are used as hedges against the kind of civil liability that we have in the United States that can occur from being too lax. It's a great time to be a lawyer in the United States. I don't know about Canada. In the worst case scenario, experts even cynically, I believe, recommend these strict measures to wear down the average citizen's support for a particular politician or a particular government. This occurred in the US, I believe, in 2020. Now, one thing that doesn't concern medical experts much is the effect their recommendations have on a society's economy and other collateral damage. They point to the science. Look, we're saving lives. And even while the fabric of an entire nation could possibly unravel, public health policy has many more repercussions than just, public health. The process of appointing task forces, advisory committees, all of these things involve a lot of politics. These are political appointees. People like Dr. Fauci, they are political appointees, and they are mostly administrators, even if they have MD after their names. They act politically like politicians sometimes, and they can cancel physicians who don't agree with their views. That's why you see one orthodoxy with regards to the COVID pandemic and why there's all this concern about disinformation that's being put out. And whether is that the disinformation?
No, it's called censorship. That's what that is. That's right. Shutting down the opposite opinion of what you say is the fact, and everybody else gets shut down. They get deleted on Facebook. They get deleted on Twitter. They get deleted on YouTube.
They don't get put in jail. They don't get put in jail, but destroying their reputation works just fine to get them out of the picture.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to say that about the politics.
It's become very political.
Of this. This is all not just following the science. There is, I think, a lot of nuance with regards to that, and we have to, I think, realize the backstories of why some of these things are, or how some of these things are decided. So that's all I had to say. Those are just some of Ian's questions. Thank you, Ian. I know you're not there, but we appreciate your starting
contribution.
No, thanks for clarifying that. That's I think that's something that's kind of at the front of everybody's mind, trying to figure out the medical advice we're getting through the government versus the actual science that's happening. And it's good to hear how it's being presented kind of with a political view as well. So appreciate the view on that. Touching on the COVID as well, is there any kind of home remedy or anything you guys can think of that can help out with it if there is no medical availability?
So there's a lot of protocols out now, and last year there was a lot of poo-pooing things like how do we say this? Quercetin. This is one of the things that was, oh no, that doesn't work. And now there are all kinds of studies that are showing it does. I have several things here. You definitely want to take some B complexes. This is just B1 here. I also have B12 that we take. So get a good B complex vitamin to decrease inflammation. Number one on the list is definitely a vitamin D. This is one of the ones we've taken. We also have a combination of vitamin D and K2, which we've gotten off of Amazon. It's in a black container. I didn't bring that with me. I have this one. But D3, about 5,000. They say anywhere from 1 to 3,000, but I think 5,000 is not bad. I actually have also a blister container that says 50. This is only once a week. So if we take this, it's only once a week. It's not daily. So a vitamin D, B complex. When you're taking the quercetin, you want to take 250 to 500. This one's actually 500. If it's 250, take it twice a day. You want to combine this with your zinc because this helps this go into the cells. So you want to take these together. They work together when they're combined. The zinc, there's different formulations. The sulfate that I have, actually 23% of the zinc sulfates are zinc elemental. And so what you're getting from the 220 is actually 50 milligrams. A good zinc is 30 to 50. So this one's fine to take. I do have ivermectin. I was prescribed it when they thought at one point that I did have COVID. If you can get a hold of that, they're recommending about 12.5 milligrams twice a day for infection. And then you can take it on a second day. It's only a 2-day protocol, which is interesting. So B complex, zinc, melatonin is
Lost you
also
guys.
what?
Yeah,
You
is,
lost us?
Is it just me that can't hear them?
Hello? I hear you.
Can you guys hear us?
I can hear the Altons just fine.
Okay,
Yep, I can
everybody.
hear them.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Melatonin's not bad. If you're going to start with melatonin for prophylaxis, in other words, preventing, start at a low dose of like 0.3 milligrams and increase. A max would be 2 milligrams. Again, we're all talking about anti-inflammatories, boosting your immune system. These all work well together. So this is just some of the things you can do. We get these protocols from
Eastern Virginia Medical School,
right.
Also from the Frontline Critical Care Alliance.
Exactly.
Definitely go see their website, covid19criticalcare.com. If you have concern, if you wonder where to get human ivermectin, that they actually have sources.
Doctors that will prescribe
licensed physicians that believe in the particular medicine.
The one other thing that I would combine with the things that I've just showed you would be the vitamin C, and I would do about 500 milligrams twice a day.
Did you mention D3?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
good.
I held up the D3.
All right.
So
All right.
some good stuff to, you can get over the counter. You can get it from your pharmacies. You can get it from vitamin sources. You can get it from Amazon. There's lots of sources. They're all over the counter, except, of course, ivermectin.
I just want to say vitamin D3, people up in the northern latitudes are commonly have issues with decreased vitamin D levels in their body. They're just not getting enough sunlight, for example,
Right.
to have a good vitamin D level. You're shooting for a vitamin D level of at least 40. Most people are 20, perhaps maybe less. 42% in the United States, indeed, of Americans have vitamin D deficiency. Those people who have vitamin D deficiency are more likely, if they get COVID, to be hospitalized and have other bad outcomes.
Well, good to know. I think I got my technical issues sorted out because I can hear you guys again. So that's good.
Okay, good.
Another question Ian had was just in regards to tips on getting a doctor to prescribe any of the medication that's listed in the book. Like lidocaine, antibiotics, oxytocin, et cetera. They're all mentioned in the book. Any ways or any tips or tricks, or even if you can answer that, I don't know if you're able to answer that question or not. If you can't, we can move on. That's fine as well.
Well, I think that the issues that you have with physicians are simply that they're concerned about losing their licenses. I mean, I'm an old retired physician. I am actively licensed, so is Amy. But if you take away my license for something that I say here, they're still going to call me doc until the day I die. And
Right.
so, but a lot of young physicians are very scared to actually go outside the orthodoxy and go outside the standard protocols that are out there for particular medical illnesses. And that's why you see people being refused certain medications if they wind up hospitalized, let's say for COVID, like for example, this ivermectin, which
Or quercetin.
or quercetin,
Yeah.
or even natural products like that, or natural supplements like that. They won't give them to them simply because they're not part of a particular protocol that is followed by their hospital. So I think that's really the problem. The important thing is to find a physician that's sympathetic to your concerns. And remember, nowadays, you don't have to physically see these doctors. In most cases, there's such a thing known as telemedicine. And so many of these doctors, for example, that prescribe some of the medicines that we mentioned here, they do it entirely through telemedicine visits. And of course, being an old doctor, of course, I like to physically put my hands on my patients, but that is actually going the way of the dinosaur, it seems, for better or worse. And I think that in this circumstance, to get these types of medications, I think you have to go probably the telemedicine route. When you speak to your doctor, always tell them that you're concerned about issues, and this is not just for COVID stuff, but just in general for medicines. What you should do is always tell them you're concerned about you're not being able to reach them in the case of an emergency or some kind of disaster, and you'd like to have an additional refill. If you have the option to ask for a 90-day prescription as opposed to a monthly prescription, you should do that. You should fill it as soon as you can.
Right. And the reason that you do that is because a lot of times they won't make you refill it on the 90th day. Your insurance will allow you to refill it earlier, and it could be 2 weeks earlier. So if you go 2 weeks before that 90 days, you now have 14 pills that were left over. Now continue to take those 14 because those are the oldest. Take your freshest and you'll start those after you take the 14. But what you've done is now you've got 14 at the end of the next 90 that you have extra, and then you're going to go 2 weeks earlier there too. So essentially at 2 refills, you've got an entire month because you did 14 and then 14, you've got 28 days and 2 refills. So it's a matter of asking your pharmacist, when you pick this up, when can I come back and refill it? And they should have a date. And it's never the date at the end of the prescription because they know that people go on vacation, they refill it a few days earlier. They don't make you wait until you took your last pill to walk into the pharmacy on that day. So you've got a leeway. So make sure you take advantage of those days and go the second that you can refill. And every time you do that, you have a few extra pills and those add up.
It's a great tip.
What about things like acquiring for my, for my medical kit, my home or family medical kit, things like antibiotics, salbutamol, whatever it may be, something that maybe maybe I don't need a prescription for right away, but I want to have on hand anyways. Is there a good way to do that?
Everything we talk about basically is for you, not necessarily for use today, but for stockpiling for disaster settings and survival scenarios. So yes, so basically, for example, with the antibiotics, if you go to a place like fishmoxfishflex.com
or chewy.com, or also there's Valley Vet.
They're in Canada.
But some of them do have.
Yeah, some of them only go to the 48, the contiguous 48.
But you told me some of them have Canadian shipping.
Yes, right. Fishmox Fishflex.
Fishmox Fishflex. All one word.com.
All right, so
they'll ship to you.
So
any of those antibiotics.
So basically, what you do is you can buy. If you go to your doctor, you'll get maybe if he's sympathetic, you might be able to get a prescription for a course of antibiotics to have around.
Maybe a Z-Pak or a Tamiflu.
But if you're the family medic, you need at least 100 capsules. You need enough for much more than one course of antibiotics if you believe that there might be a long-term event, right?
Right.
So you should get these in advance, and these are sold in lots of 30, lots of 100.
How many are in here?
There are
this one
100.
100. So this is 100.
100 capsules in there.
100 capsules of Keflex in here.
So even the most sympathetic doctor will not give you this. However, you can get these without a prescription.
Right.
And as I said, that particular site happens to have DHL international rates and the USPS international priority mail. So I assume those go to Canada. So those are some of the things that you need to do. Of course, there are Indian pharmacies, which I can't vouch for the quality of their products.
Right.
And also I can't vouch for the supply chain anymore either.
At this point, right.
So, you know, it's very
Do
possible
they even have them?
those containers that are floating in the ocean may have a few billion doses of salbutamol or you know, or other medicines. That might be somebody's order of some prescription drug there, but
we'll find out someday.
You can get those. I can't vouch for their quality. I haven't had
we haven't ordered them.
Done business with them, but they do exist, and people can seem to.
Oh, I did get a bunch of Z packs from them though.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
I got like.
And we're still here. And by the
30
way,
packs,
we do use
30 boxes of Z packs.
We do use these on our own persons when it's appropriate.
Yeah, no, I've been
So
taking
we're
this for
talking
my sinus
personal
infection.
experience.
I'll literally take it right now.
I get that.
Here, right here. Wait, I have to get a drink. Hold on. I need something more water.
We do have a question in the live chat from Kyle, just asking if we can talk about the half-life of medicines like the fish antibiotics.
Well, that's interesting. The potency of these medications are, in the past, it was thought that they were defined by their expiration dates. Now, the expiration date is the last day that a drug company, a pharmaceutical company, there she goes. All right, we have to watch her. We'll watch her for the next few minutes. If she keels over, then you know that this is not for you. All right.
I looked him up. I know it's real.
All right. In any case, so expiration dates are the last day that a pharmaceutical company will guarantee 100% potency. You're talking about half-life, 100% potency of their drug. So that date is, from that date on, the company guarantees 100% potency. Now, does that mean that if you take it the week afterwards or the month afterwards that you're going to grow a horn in the middle of your forehead or a third eye? No, that's not what that means. And why do I know that? Because the Department of Defense has a national strategic drug stockpile, and that drug stockpile is for use in peacetime disasters and other major disasters. And those drugs are basically there in millions of doses, probably, maybe billions in some cases. And they just sit there until their expiration date. In the old days, the Department of Defense would take them, get out the forklift on the expiration date, throw out millions of doses and probably hundreds of millions of dollars worth of these medicines and put them right in the dumpster or however they disposed of them safely of. Well, even the Department of Defense in the United States, which is incredibly wasteful in some cases, realized that this might be wasteful. And so what they did is they did a study. The study was known as the Shelf Life Extension Program. The Shelf Life Extension Program evaluated 122 medicines that are most commonly used during peacetime disasters. And they found that almost everything that was in pill or capsule form was still 100% potent and not dangerous to take between 2, depending on the medicine, between 2 and 12 years beyond their expiration date. And some of those medicines that were 2 years, they were just 2 years over. They were just 2 years expired at the time of the study. And, you know, who knows if they were better? They probably were better for longer than that. And so as a result, the term emergency use authorization came about, not just for emergencies like COVID and these vaccines and things like that, but for medicines that are in short supply. For example, the medicine doxycycline, a common antibiotic, one of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics in North America, received an emergency use authorization when there was a limited supply of it available for 5 years beyond its expiration date. And it could be even better longer than that, but they gave you an emergency use authorization officially from the government saying, you got this, you can use it for at least 5 years after your expiration date, for up to 5 years after the expiration date. So basically, your half-lives are in the matter of years, I would have to say, with regards to this. And I wrote an article about this. What was one of my first articles was the truth about expiration dates, and you can find that online at Survival Blog and some of the other, and of course on our website at doomandbloom.net. And it also has the link to these studies, by the way. By the way, the medicines that were in liquid form did not fare so well. So if it's in pill or capsule form, everything I'm telling you, I stand behind. But with liquid medicines, it's much less certain that they're going to last. They usually lose their potency much quicker than that.
The only exception to that is the EpiPen.
Right. The EpiPen, there's a study that occurred in which they used EpiPens that were expired for about 3 years. EpiPen is epinephrine, is used in people who are having severe allergic reactions or anaphylactic shock. And these medicines, these are auto injectors. You stick them in your thigh, and they found that even EpiPens that were 3 years or so expired were up to 80% effective. Now that means that you might had to give a second dosage, but the company felt strong enough that it was useful that if you don't have anything but expired EpiPens, even the company itself tells you to use the expired EpiPen and maybe have a second one available so that you can give a second dose if it's necessary.
That's awesome.
That's really good to know.
Speaking of EpiPen,
And we have it, and this is what the EpiPen is.
yeah, this is another thing.
Another thing that's very important to have, because
Yeah, here's the EpiPens.
the reason why
Comes
the
in a
family
2-pack.
the reason why the family medic should have this is because if you wind up having to go on the road after a disaster, it's no longer safe to be where you are. You're going to be exposed to a number of things. For example, if we wound up in Florida being, I don't know, invaded by Cuba, and we had to get out of Florida and we had to go to Canada, well, who knows if there are venomous insects or plants that we might be very allergic to. I might have an anaphylactic reaction to it. And that's why every medic should have EpiPens available, because if you wind up having to go on the road, you don't know what you'll encounter, and a member of your family may be very allergic to one of those substances. EpiPens versus generic. Generic auto-injectors are fine.
Cloudy, absolutely. Any liquid
Right.
that was what was clear when you got it and it's cloudy now, no good.
Other things that are bad.
Saline, IV fluids.
Right. The things that have also solids that have sort of settled to the bottom. If they have solids settled to the bottom, usually that means that it probably is not something you should use in terms of liquid medicines.
And kind of building on the EpiPen, it wasn't a part of my questions originally, but I know that in a hospital setting, we often use epinephrine in cardiac arrest situations. Is the EpiPen dose anywhere near enough to be effective, or should we save it for an anaphylactic reaction?
Well, I mean, if you have someone dying from a cardiac event, then you certainly could consider using the epinephrine. The only problem is that a person having a cardiac event, if you are able to get them back using CPR and using all the methods that you have available, in a situation where there's no longer access to modern medicine, there is no intensive care unit or cardiac care unit to take this person to. And so since that's all that we write about, we don't particularly write much about that, because those people are not the kind of people that you will be able to save.
Right.
If I have a heart
Sadly.
attack and I lose a certain amount of heart muscle because of lack of oxygen to it, even if you manage to get me back using CPR
Or epinephrine.
it's rare
Right.
that a person that is resuscitated with CPR is able to live a normal life without having to spend a significant amount of time in a cardiac care unit with advanced technology.
Which we won't
So
have.
it wouldn't be worth the effort, and we should save it for a more viable.
Well,
dosage.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm not going to say that. If it was my husband and I've got it, I'm using it. If it's your wife, you know, your father, your mother, we're all going to go to the links, and including CPR. Think about it. You're out in the middle of nowhere. Even if the world hasn't collapsed, your phone doesn't work. You can't call anybody. Am I going to not do CPR on him with no hope of getting hold of anybody because my battery died or I have no cell phone service? I'm going to do CPR on him until I'm probably physically dead myself. I'm just going to do it. It's like, if I have the medicine in my hand, am I going to say, oh, well, he's old. I've got a child over here that might need it, because they have severe allergies. Am I going to save the medicine? No, I'm going to give it to him. So it's ethical decisions. We're all going to go by our heart and our love. And it's going to be really, really tough there. I don't think personally that I could not give him something because I'm saving it for someone else. I don't think I could do that.
It depends if you are essentially the family medic. If you're the family medic,
I don't want to think about it.
if you're the family medic, or if you're the community medic, you may wind up starting off as a family medic, but you may end up as a community medic. And in those circumstances, you may make different decisions, and it is only human to do so. And I give you permission to do so. You're going to feel guilty about doing that.
Your heart's still going to lead.
But that's the way it is.
Your heart's still going to lead.
Now, medicine, I see Kyle mentions medicines to stock up for barter. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about barter. John Wesley Rawls and some of the other survival experts say that ammunition is the most valuable barter item. And in this, I disagree completely with them. I believe that medical supplies are by far the most important, after food, the most important barter items, because there are going to be a lot of people that are going to have the ability
things like this
to make wounds.
Quick clot.
There'll be a lot of people that have the ability to make wounds.
Or Sam.
There'll be very few people that will have the supplies to heal wounds. And so it's important to have the ability to have the supplies that you can use for barter. Now, by the way, speaking of which, although I think it's important to have barter, to barter, but I think that it's also important to, I think it's important to be able to consider the use of barter instead of using it for barter. I would say using it to, how can I put this the right way?
Instead of having money, you want to have medical supplies, right?
You want to have medical supplies. But what I'm trying to say is that it's besides barter, oh my goodness, I'm trying to get to the right thing here.
It's better than money.
Now, what I'm trying to say is,
or knowledge is better than.
Well,
you know what? Just move on.
One of the things we've talked about on previous episodes was talking about all of the skill set that you want to have within your mutual assistance group,
right?
And how valuable having that medical knowledge, having those key resources, how valuable that makes you as an individual to your group or sort of to others that come to your group for help.
Right. So what I would like to say, and before I lose my train of thought again, because I'm losing brain cells so quickly, the fact that if you have barter materials for barter, people in general don't use them to specifically help people. What they do is they use them to.
You lost it again.
Lost again. What the hell?
It's okay.
That's right. I'm sure it'll come back.
It's you know what?
Something along the lines of trading skills rather than trading equipment.
Well, yeah, and you know what? We build up silver and we build up gold and we build up medical supplies and we build up knowledge.
The important thing is to have the ability to use your supplies. Yep. But even if you have supplies that you would want to barter, I think that it's better. I think it's better, honestly, to go ahead and offer your supplies to help people that are in your community. And if you can do that, then you'll have people that will
do anything to help you.
Right. And they will consider you so important to the community.
That's true.
That that you'll be able to save lives that way.
Exactly. And you'll become very, very important. And then they'll give you food, you give them help.
And they'll expend resources to protect you. And
Exactly.
that was the thing that I was trying to get to the entire time. I can't believe that
It's
I
okay.
blanked out on that.
That's all right. We
All
haven't actually discussed that thought in a long time.
Well,
We haven't discussed that
no, we
issue
haven't. We really
in a
haven't.
very long time, probably 10 years. But
It's a
anyway,
good point,
yes.
though. It's a very
You'll
good
become
point. Very
really
valid point.
important to the community, and they'll want to do anything around you. You'll get personal security. They'll grow food for you. They'll do things for you that you can't do, and then you'll provide services to them to help their health.
How about think for me?
That's
That
okay.
would be nice.
Don't worry about thinking. Don't worry about thinking, honey. I'm here. Don't worry. It's okay. We'll have a mind meld.
So if you could point to kind of one major skill set that you say like the average layperson is missing, and say if you could develop this one skill that will help you when an ambulance isn't coming, is there one?
Do you have one picked out? Because I have one.
Go ahead.
Okay, so mine would be to stop bleeding. So, we're kind of, when we were in school, it was all CPR. Everyone needs to know CPR, CPR, CPR. That's great, but most of the time CPR is like for what? People are in their 80s. Stopping bleeding is for anybody, and especially children who are reckless and do things without thought, jump off. You see the YouTube videos all the time, or the world's stupid.
Oh yeah, Instagram's page, kids getting hurt is my favorite thing
Right,
to watch. I
right.
can watch kids
World's
falling down all
dumbest
day.
videos. That's what we love to watch. The people like I'm going to skateboard off the roof and land, and do a double, triple thing, or land in this garbage can, or the skateboarders that go on the railing and they fall on between their legs and then they hit their whatever and their legs going this way. Anyway, bleeding is for anyone. So for me, how to stop bleeding, car accidents, your kitchen. I don't know how many times I've cut myself with a knife. I keep those hemostatic gauzes that I showed you guys in my drawer with the knives and the forks and the spoon. There's also a little pack of hemostatic gauze and bandages because I know I'm going to need it really fast. But how to stop bleeding for me is probably the biggest thing that we should be teaching kids from age 5 through 12th grade and in college and everywhere. How to stop bleeding. You're going to save more lives in your lifetime if you know how to stop bleeding, whether it's yourself, your spouse, your child, or someone you run into anywhere.
Now, I'll say this in a survival setting, bleeding is certainly, and hostile encounters and things like that, those are indeed things that you do need to know how to deal with. But the most deaths, in my opinion, that will occur if we wind up getting thrown off the grid and just thrown back into the 19th century medically is going to be exposure to bad water and poorly prepared food.
True.
So I think one of the most important things that is skills to have is the knowledge of several different ways on how to disinfect water. Because if you can't count on good water, then you're going to wind up having losing a lot of people from things like dysentery and
Right.
from other similar types of diseases that killed so many soldiers in the American Civil War, for example, in the 19th century. Now, that's something
You're right.
that is very important.
And the thing is, we're also used to just turning on our spigots and having clean water come out. And even if you have a well, like when I lived in Georgia, when I grew up half my life, we had a well. Well, we knew when we got the well water out, like it was clean. But, there can be contaminations in the future. Or if you are on city water, like we are here where we are, and also in South Florida where we are, we're up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. But both of these locations are city water. If that system goes down for whatever reason, we don't have clean water. And I'm sure most people have no idea how to make their water potable or drinkable. They just don't understand that there are things in lakes and rivers that can kill you. that can give you diarrhea. And after a period of time, you're so dehydrated, you just die. People just don't think about water contamination and how sensitive we are to that system breaking down and killing a bunch of people.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because we've just had an incident up northern Canada in Iqaluit. I'm not sure if you've heard about it, where their water system was contaminated with some sort of fuel, be it diesel or whatever, and they were told no drinking, no bathing, no cooking, but they were running out with buckets and taking it out of the local river and stuff like that. And even they were saying, yeah, that's great, but what might be a contamination in that water that you think is safe in the river, and it really isn't.
And a lot of the clearest mountain streams that you'll see, here we are right now, we're spending a little time in the Smoky Mountains National Park here.
Right.
Even the clearest mountain streams here have colonies of Giardia, which can cause a pretty significant diarrheal disease, get you
We call it
sick.
beaver fever around here.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Beaver
there
fever.
You go. Yeah.
Because you don't want it because of beaver contamination of beaver feces and stuff, I'm sure, right?
Yep. And on that kind of line, we've got, there's all kinds of kit, there's all kinds of things we can improvise. I know a lot of the handbook talks about the things that you have that you can make and use for healing somebody. If we've kind of talked about hemostatic gauze, touched on that a little bit. If there was one kind of item that you could point to that's kind of a modern medicine item that you would consider indispensable, is there something that would be?
Good.
I would say tourniquets. That would be my idea. I mean, I wouldn't want to live, and I don't care what kind of tourniquet. This happens to be a cat tourniquet. It's Velcro based, but I mean, and I can reuse this over and over. But again, it goes back to my whole idea of bleeding. So for me, this would be too difficult for me. I know you can use a wrench or a screwdriver with, some wide material, but for me, the quickness and the ease of use for this, this would be indispensable for me.
Right now, from my standpoint, I think that it's more important to have things. If you're going to have a device that I think will save lives, believe it or not, I believe that device would be something like a mini Sawyer or a Life Straw, or something that would make it relatively easy to guarantee that your water is safe to drink. So those are the things that I think that, like I mentioned before, I think bad water, bad food, that's going to wind up causing the most deaths in a survival setting.
Life Straw. I don't have this
as
open,
opposed
but
to,
this is the Life Straw we have up here in case we have a breakdown of our water.
As opposed to gunfights at the OK Corral. Now, at least I hope so, because every day you're going to have to drink water that might be questionable. And I hope you're not going to have to go through, some kind of gunfight every day.
Yeah, that's true.
Fantastic. So you're thinking bleeding control and kind of gastrointestinal health would be the kind of the two biggest
water
categories.
And the other thing that's I think is important is to have some way to dispose of human waste safely. So
Sanitation.
The knowledge to put together, now this is not a device necessarily, but the knowledge of how to put together a latrine for a group of people, if it's a community, or to know to at least have wherever you're disposing of waste be at least 200 feet away from your water source. I think that these are some of the things that are very important, basic things to know that will save lives without necessarily having a device involved. I mean, just simple knowledge. And so we talk
preventing interventions rather than curing things.
Right. We talk about all these devices, but we also try to impart the knowledge that a lot of it is common sense, but impart the knowledge that will allow you to have the best chance to keep your members healthy.
Right.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. What are some of the pitfalls that you guys see new preppers fall into when they're first trying to get medically prepared?
Well, I think that the thing with new preppers is that they like the sexy, sensational stuff. So,
The thing
like that.
I want to show this. Okay, so this is the IT clamp. So this is the newest, latest, greatest way to stop bleeding. We have a video on this on our YouTube video. So this is a blue clamp.
It opens up.
You see those teeth? The spikes?
They're
So
a
that
little more-
goes on the skin, and then you go, I just stuck myself. All right, well, it's prepared to go in, and you just clamp it like that. And it goes on either side of the laceration, and it pulls the skin together like that, like a hair clamp.
The idea behind it is that it's supposed to cause the pressure to be so much when you close the skin tight over it,
Right.
that even if the bleeding is deeper, that it winds up causing the bleeding to be enclosed in a confined space, forming what they call a hematoma, a collection of blood underneath. And this is something that is being used by the military and is now approved for hard to get to places
Right.
by the Tactical Combat
the
Casualty
neck.
Care Committee. So this can be placed on the neck, which you can't place a tourniquet on the neck,
Right.
right?
The
And
scalp.
around the neck, so you can put it in a lot of
Hands.
groin, a number of
Right,
different
under the
number of
armpit.
different areas. So these are some of the common things, is that people get too excited about this stuff
Right.
and the other stuff related to trauma, and they'll buy a bunch of supplies related to that, but they'll ignore the things that they'll see much more often than life-threatening bleeds and broken legs. They'll wind up they won't consider just how antibiotics, for example, to deal with an infection. You're going to have people that are doing all these activities of daily survival that they're not used to. I mean, you set me to chopping wood for fuel, and I probably am going to cut myself at one point or another. And so that cut could easily wind up getting infected. And it could start off mild and then eventually make its way into my bloodstream, cause sepsis. And from a 2-inch cut on my hand, I can wind up dying in a few weeks. So this is something that
Should we stop bleeding on this
new
show?
preppers, I think there are new preppers who
I can
wind
make
up
myself bleed.
having these problems, and they need to figure out also mundane things: how to put together a sick room, how to put together a hospital tent, how to, like I said, get rid of human waste.
Right.
Sanitation. What to do for somebody that's suffering from food poisoning, or how to deal with people, or how to follow people that have chronic illnesses that are in their group. If your mother or your father is in your group, if you have a cousin who has some kind of medical issue, you have to know a little bit about that. So we talk about chronic medical issues so that you have a fund of knowledge of how to deal with things, and also how to recognize not just medical problems, but dental problems as well. If you have a disaster that winds up knocking out the power for a week, you don't need any dental supplies really in your kit if you're going to be the family medic. But if you have a disaster that knocks out the grid for 6 months, 9 months, then having dental supplies is going to be one of the most important things that you could possibly have, because people
Absolutely.
can die from things like tooth abscesses. An infection in the tooth that ends up with an abscess, goes into the circulation, kills people. They find in Egypt, they find these mummies that have like a part of their jaw that's disintegrated, because these people died from tooth abscesses that went out of control because they didn't have antibiotics and they didn't have the knowledge, the instrumentation that could take care of things. That's why we also have a big section on dental supplies. That's why we have dental kits in on our store.
Right.
Because you are not just the medical officer.
Right.
You're not taking care of medical problems. You're the dental officer.
Right.
You are the sanitation officer.
Right.
You're
the counselor.
Counselor.
Right.
You are so much
more.
So you have such a long job description as the family medic.
You're the nurse.
You will never have to prove you're nurse. You'll never have to prove your fortitude in any other way if you take on this responsibility.
Yep, it's true.
That's a good lead into the next question. Just in regards to on your site, there are kits available for purchase. Is there one that you guys suggest for the beginner who's just looking into being medically prepared?
So, I have different size kits, and they depend on how big your group is. If you're a single person who's just going on, a 2-day hike, I have little bitty kits, that are very compact, super lightweight, easy to carry, and just have a few items. And then I have kits that go all the way to giant backpacks, take care of multiple family members, multiple injuries, a list of injuries this long, including orthopedic and dental, burns and bleeding, and major stuff down to little things like cuts and blisters, or water issues. We have things in there for emergencies. We have waterproof matches, and we have headlamps. We have odd things that you wouldn't think would be in a medical kit, but we thought, well, you know what? You may need to signal somebody. You may need to start a fire. I have a 8-liter water bag that if you need to purify your water, you need to bring the water to your camp because you need to make clean water to either irrigate someone's wound or provide the patient with clean water. So I've really gone beyond just medical issues when I've come up with these extensive backpack kits. So going somewhere in between there, I had to think, like, what would I say? And what we actually carry when we travel from South Florida up into Tennessee, into the mountains, which is a 14-hour drive, sometimes in the mountains without internet. In other words, I can't call for help. I carry our medium kit, and that's literally what I have in my truck right now is our medium kit. Now I have 2 different names for it, but they have medium in it. One of them is my old name, and then I made FSA, HSA, which are health savings account, safe names, and it always starts off with first aid medium kit. So you'll see these different names. They're the same exact kit. If you see the word medium in it, there's 2 different names, but it's the same kit. It's a trifold kit. It has everything from honey to, lighting to gauze to, it has a SAM splint for fractures. It has things that you need for hemorrhaging. It has the medical military tourniquet. It has the stretchy tourniquet that you can use on small children or very large folk that the military tourniquet won't work on. So it really does have a nice wide variety. So for me, what I would start with would be the medium kit. In addition to that, we have specialty kits. We have dental kits. We have now an eye care kit, eye care emergency kit, which is specifically for injuries of the eye, issues of the eye, infections of the eye. And then it comes with instructions that an article that you wrote on eye injuries. I'm very into instructions. So whenever you get a kit, you're going to have some kind of instructions. It's either going to have, or it will always have, if it has bleeding information, a waterproof sheet front and back on how to use the items in that kit to stop somebody from bleeding to death. And so it's on waterproof paper because it could be raining. There could be blood all over the place. And, if you have just a piece of paper, it gets smeared and you can't see anything. So those have waterproof instructions. Any of my bleeding kits, anything that has any kind of bleeding items in there. And the eye kit has instructions. The dental kit that I have separately has where there is no dentist. So it has the entire book there. And the information that's in the book relates directly to the items that are in the dental kit.
Right.
So the dental kit was based on the book by dentists that we consulted with to make sure that they were cohesive, because you don't want to have a book that tells you to use an instrument that you don't have. That's no good for you. So when it talks about using zinc oxide powder and clove oil in the Where There Is No Dentist book, that's exactly what you have in your kit. So they go
Right.
together.
So you can make temporary dental fillings.
Exactly. I also have an OB baby delivery kit, which is one of my newest kits. And that has an instruction book, which is super easy to look at and understand. It's made for third world countries. So there's not a lot of words in it, but there's a whole lot of pictures, which is great for people who have never delivered a baby before. You don't want a whole bunch of paragraphs and words that you don't understand the terminology. Show me what I'm supposed to do with my hands to get this baby out safely.
And everything,
You don't lose
that
points if you
she's-
catch them on the first bounce.
Yeah, you're right.
Hold it by the leg. Ah! As long as you catch him by the foot, you're okay.
Everything that she's talking about is described in detail in our 4th edition of the
Yes.
Survival Medicine
That's
Handbook,
right.
by the way. So you're not just thrown not just thrown supplies and not given the ability to learn all about it.
We're
not
so into
not just
education.
exactly not just where to put your hands, but
Yeah.
how the process works and
Right.
things like that.
This is our life's work here. The kids, I never in my wildest dream thought that I would be selling first aid kits or designing first aid kits or packing first aid kits. It was all about education when we started.
Right.
It was teaching, it was traveling, it was educating. That's what it was about. We only started doing first aid kits because there was demand. People were reading the book and they said, well, you've got these great lists of what I should buy. Can you make some kits? I'm like, So the first one I did was the family kit. And then that family kit gave birth to everybody else. The eye kit and the dental kit and the OB kit.
That's awesome. And you guys ship to Canada as well, correct?
Yes.
I do, yes.
I knew that was going to be a question in the live chat here any second, so I figured I'd get ahead of it.
I see Darius said that was wondering if the IT clamp is difficult to use in a bloody area. Believe it or not, it works actually pretty quick to stop bleeding in bloody areas. But I would say something that no one else is going to tell you in first aid kits. Bloody areas, every device is more difficult to use in a bloody area because it is indeed slippery. And so that's why in our gunshot kits, in our kits that are specifically meant to deal with bleeding, that we have more than one pair of gloves, because sometimes things are so moist, so slippery, and so on. So you just got to take off gloves real quick and put on another set. And so we actually give you additional sets of gloves because we know that that's going to happen. For example, another thing that people don't know is the Israeli battle dressing. Which have you guys heard of that?
Yep.
Okay, it's a compression dressing, and it is vacuum packed. But what people don't know until they find out very unpleasantly is that when you open up one of these, you think you have
oh my gosh, you're opening it.
Yeah, I'm opening it.
He always opens up my supplies.
When you open up one of these things,
I have it open. I have the 6-inch opened up right here.
all right, no, but that's not. I'm not
But there
showing them
is
how.
a
I'm not going to
second.
show them how
There's
to
a
use
second
it.
package.
Once you open this vacuum pack thing, guess what's inside? It's another plastic vacuum packed container.
Here, I'll do that for you.
So you actually have to cut the second one open, and you're doing that in the midst of a bunch of bleeding. And so I recommend always opening up the first vacuum pack layer, this vacuum pack layer, and this is what you're left with. You see, you still have a plastic vacuum pack
Another
layer to
one.
open. So
That's why I put scissors in every single kit.
that's
Because
right.
you got to cut these
So
open.
you have to cut these open. You don't know about it, and no one ever tells you about it until you actually wind up having the unpleasant surprise of saying, "Holy mackerel! I have to open up this vacuum pack sealed plastic container." So what you do is take this, put it in this open one. That's why you can leave it in like this. It's still sterile and it's easy to take out. You use the scissors we give you to open it up.
And the reason you have to use scissors is because your hands with your
Too
gloves
slippery.
on it are going to have blood on
Too
them.
slippery.
And there is no way. And you know what the military tells their guys? This is the funny part. They tell them to use their teeth. That's how they tell them. If you ask any military guy how they were instructed to open this up in the middle of an emergency is to hold it and use their teeth and open. Can you imagine your bloody hand is holding this and you use your teeth?
Yeah, no.
Make sure you have scissors.
And that's why we have a dental kit.
Yeah, right.
All right, I've got one final question here. Just in regards, have you guys noticed any misconceptions on medical preparedness that continually come up as people are talking to you?
Oh boy. Basically people think that because they have a medicine cabinet with a box of Band-Aids and a bottle of paracetamol, or acetaminophen or ibuprofen in their medicine cabinet, and maybe an ACE wrap. They think that they're medically prepared.
Totally prepared.
That's not the case.
Right.
You need to have a variety of different types of supplies. We discuss these supplies in detail. And even though the book is for sale, all of the stuff that we talk about is absolutely free as long as you're willing to do research in our 1,200 articles, podcasts, and videos. We talk about, we write about, you can watch videos about all of this stuff, absolutely free. But, this is why we talk about all the different types of supplies that you actually do need. And we really want people to have a varied amount of supplies, because there are varied amounts of medical issues that you're going to encounter.
Right.
And so I think that that's one thing that's really important. And the other thing is that, let's say you buy a medical kit from us, or you buy a medical kit from some other company that makes medical kits. The thing that I see people do most commonly with it is they take the kit, they don't open it, they just take it and they put it on the top shelf of the closet,
and it gets dusty.
And they forget about it.
It gets dusty.
What I recommend, I recommend that you do this with our kits as well, that we think we put everything where exactly it should be. However, what makes sense to us may not make sense to you. So I want you to take our kits, I want you to open them up, I want you to take them apart and dissect them, and I want you to move them back together, put them back together in such a fashion that it makes sense to you, because you don't want to open up one of these kits and say, oh, where is the stuff that stops the bleeding? You want to know that instinctively. So what makes sense for you intuitively as to where that should be may be different from what it seems like to us. And so that's something that I think is very important. People never do. Very few people will do that. And I think it just makes me nuts that these things sit on the shelf without being actually fiddled around with.
And that's leads to the point of training, using your items that you can reuse. Again, like this cat tourniquet, I mean, unless you use this 1,000 times, because eventually Velcro will give. But you can practice. You can practice putting this on yourself. I personally have videos. I'm sure other people do too, but I have videos of how to put these tourniquets on and set them up and use them. Of course, I'm killing myself right now.
Well, you want to get to the point where you can put these on
without thinking.
One hand.
And without thinking. There you go.
And you have to know.
I just set it up. You got to put the time on here so that everyone knows. But you want to be able to do this without thinking, with absolutely no thought whatsoever. How do I put this on and save a life on myself or on someone else? And it's okay to use these. These are not sterile items, the tourniquets. Now, your gauze, the main thing you're going to do is you can use even paper towels and we use pool sticks, pool floaties, and we've cut holes in them. These are just pool floats, which I made a little shape here so it sit nicely on a table. But we cut this out so you can learn how to pack a wound with this just by, again, using a length of paper towels and learning how to pack a wound, watching videos and how to keep pressure on the wound from where the bleeding's coming from. And that's how you learn. You're not using up your medical supplies, but it's hand memory. And once you've done it a few times, it's like riding a bike or swimming, when you have to use it and you have to do it, it's going to come to you because you've practiced it.
And
So
we
much
kind
as you can with practicing.
Exactly.
We talked about this on the last episode. The American College of Surgeons, their Stop the Bleed program, they've actually offered the kind of the theory portion, so the learning element of it on their website now. So you can see how the experts recommend for it to be done, and then practice this on your own. And that's absolutely right. It's repetition.
We're certified Stop the Bleed instructors
Yeah.
through the American College of Surgeons, and
on the
we have our own
stopbleeding.org.
We have our own seminar that we have on Stop the Bleed that we put on Facebook,
which is
and
much
YouTube.
more extensive than stopthebleed.org.
But the important thing is to absorb this information. When you take these classes, and when you take first responder classes through your municipalities, I think the important thing for you is to realize if you are concerned about an event that would take us off the grid, you always have to, as you learn each module in these courses, you have to say to yourself, what would happen? What would I do if I couldn't just stabilize and transport this patient? Because that is your goal that you're taught. That's what you're taught in these classes.
Move them away from you.
Stabilize and transport, pass on to the next highest medical resource.
Right.
Everything we write about assumes that you are the highest medical resource.
Right.
And so it's very important for you to think about these types of things. That's the medic mindset for survival. And if you can do that and you can have strategies, and that's what we've been trying, of course, for the last decade, to try to put out as many of these types of strategies as possible, well, then you're going to give your family the best chance of surviving in times of trouble.
That's right.
Oh, awesome. One question here in the live chat, just in regards to making a purchase of one of your guys' kits. Is the transaction when you're shipping to Canada still made in U.S. funds, or is it converted into Canadian funds on the website?
I'm pretty sure it's U.S. funds because the platform is BigCommerce, and that is a U.S. company. And I don't think that they're converting to Canadian dollars during the process. Sense. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's U.S.
Yeah, I missed that question. I knew that one would come up too. Standard e-commerce for Canadian purchases.
But I do have the option for Canadian shipping, so they can do it automated. I did have for a time before they did that, where people would have to email me. Now, if you've got a large order, it's probably better to email me because I think I just got a nice discount with FedEx to Canada. So if you're shipping something that weighs a lot of pounds, say even over like 15, it's better to email me at drbonespodcast@aol.com. And I can actually quote you probably a much cheaper shipping. And so you can save some good money. I just got that on like Tuesday. So it's super new. It just happened. I haven't been able to update the website. So write to me if you got something you want to order from Canada that has some good weight to it. And I will send me your address, what you want. I'll do a shipping quote. Hopefully it'll be much better than what you saw on the website, and we can save you some money.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Do you have a few questions, Scott?
Yeah. I love that your book shakes off the continuity bias that things will always be available, that help is coming. I love that you guys talk about cleaning your own medical equipment for reuse, growing medical plants, stocking useful supplies for use, bartering, the sick room, the nursing, the expiration dates. I have a medical background, and I love how everything is presented in a very user-friendly way. With regards to reprocessing single-use equipment, I'm familiar with some of the post-SARS studies of reprocessing N95 masks. Some friends of mine actually built UVC-based sterilization to keep some of the long-term facilities supplied with PPE during kind of that early onset of COVID. I've read various journal articles looking at cleaning single-use devices, and there are some varied opinions. The articles all seem to be very specific to a particular type of equipment just for their test, the a laparoscopic biopsy punch versus common hemostats or something, something like that. What are your thoughts about reprocessing single-use equipment? Or is it really just a moot point? Because if we're in a situation where we can't resupply anything, we're going to have to do it regardless. Is hot soapy water followed by a pressure cooker adequate for most items?
Well, we discussed various ways to clean and disinfect even disposable items, like you mentioned. In our latest edition, we really expanded that section in the Survival Medicine Handbook. And we also talked about it in Alton's Pandemic Preparedness Guide, another one of our books. It needs to be simple and it needs to be effective. So having an antiseptic like povidone iodine or chlorhexidine, I think that's Hibiclens here and betadine here. I don't know what it's called up there. And maybe a battery-powered UVC wand. That actually, believe it or not, can make a big difference in your medical storage with regards to making things, disinfecting things and making them reusable. In one Wilderness Medical Society article, I'm a member of the Wilderness Medical Society. And by the way, anybody can be, so you might consider looking into that. Researchers dipped common medical instruments, into a soup they made that contained 7 different bacterial pathogens. Now, in this study, contaminated instruments were first scrubbed after being dipped for a period of, I think, 30 seconds or something like that. They were scrubbed with chlorhexidine for about 30 seconds afterwards, dried with a sterile 4x4 gauze, and then were hung up I think they used a hanger because this was a wilderness environment theoretically, or something simple. And then they passed a battery-powered UVC wand within 4 inches over the instruments in the open position. And they did that for 45 seconds. And then they evaluated it afterwards to determine how many bacteria they were able to remove from this thing that was just sort of laying around in a soup of these pathogens. And it revealed 100% reduction of bacteria, and it achieved levels of sterilization that were acceptable for use in the field. Now, if the instrument was not used right away, the one that you just cleaned, if you vacuum sealed it, it actually extended the life of the sterility. So this would be great if you had this, but I'll take hot soapy water and a pressure cooker at about 15 PSI for 20 minutes as an alternative any day, though. So if you've got that, I'll go with that.
Amy, between the antibiotics, cutting yourself, getting yourself a sunburn with the UV wand, you're very committed to this podcast. We really appreciate it.
You bleeding?
She is very, very hands-on.
Yes, I have bled for this show.
She's very hands-on.
Anyway, yes.
All right. So my next question, we were talking about antibiotics as a very useful thing to store ahead of time. If we end up in a resource-depleted situation, would some of the non-antibiotic resistant bacteria have an advantage or suddenly be less hindered than their resistant siblings? Or is that genie just already out of the bottle? Is it just common bacteria in that 2-inch cut from your firewood work that's going to get you, and we really don't need to worry about the hospital-acquired organisms as much?
So whatever has mutated is mutated. It's just like COVID. There's thousands of mutations already. So whatever has been mutated or changed because it's been in animals that we have injected with thousands of different antibiotics over, however many years we've been doing this, 40, 50 years, that's just out of the bottle. Going to the future, if we stop doing that, we're not going to have more, but we're still going to have the ones that exist. And that's for everything that's mutated already. So things that are exposed to antibiotics that are triggered to have mutations, if there's no longer antibiotics in those animals, they're not going to have further mutations based on future antibiotics, but we're not going to get rid of what we have.
The reason why she's mentioning animals is because 80% of antibiotics that are used in North America are given not to humans, but to food-producing livestock.
Exactly.
And the reason why that is not because there are infected food-producing livestock that need antibiotics, but because there is actually a statistical difference in how fast these animals grow. If you give an animal, a chicken or some other livestock, antibiotics, it will grow faster and reach market sooner than if you don't give it antibiotics. There's some countries that have wisely stopped or banned this practice, like Denmark, and indeed, sure enough, there's not any more evidence of infections in humans from eating this type of food. But indeed, it is, I think, something that is a big issue, and very few people know that. Indeed, like I said, 80% of antibiotics do go not to humans, but to the livestock that make up our food source. The funny thing is that most of your problems are going to come from organisms that invade breaks in the skin due to minor injuries. Remember me chopping wood and cutting myself and getting a little infection? Well, that infection most commonly is going to be from bacteria that naturally lives on my skin: staph, epidermidis, strep epidermidis, these kinds of bacteria. And they are absolutely not a problem if they live on the outside of my skin, but they are indeed a pathogen if they are in my soft tissue,
right,
in my blood vessels and things like that.
Right.
And they can actually cause sepsis and can be a problem. Now, with the lack of antibiotics, and this is why I'm so strong on antibiotics, and tried in a decade ago, figured out that these fish antibiotics would be actual options, is because there are going to be so many unnecessary deaths associated with these kinds of infected wounds that it's going to cost you valuable members of your survival community. I remember an American History Channel program known as After Armageddon. I don't know if anybody saw that.
Yep.
But After Armageddon was the story of a paramedic and his family, some long-term, society-ending disaster.
I don't think they even ever said exactly what happened. They just kind of started it and
probably
said it's like an end of the world thing already.
But in any case, we followed them.
Yes.
And they made their way to a community that accepted them.
Which seemed safe.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were saved. Like,
Right.
everything's going to be fine.
Right. But of course, you're a paramedic, but your duties are not just to sit around waiting for people to get injured. Your duties had to be general. So
Right.
he was
not the medic for the
Right.
community.
So he was growing food and he was
Right.
doing all these things, and he managed to cut himself doing one thing or another. And he saw that it was getting red and infected. And indeed, he went to the stores of the community to see what the medical stores are. So you see if he can find antibiotics. No antibiotics. And sure enough, and with the knowledge of a medical professional, he saw his redness spread, and he wound up, within 3 weeks, he was dead.
Spoiler alert.
I'm sorry.
Spoiler alert.
It's an interesting show. So the thing is that you have to have some of these things, because infections are going to occur, and they're not big problems now because they can be nipped in the bud.
Right,
But if you
right.
don't have the tools to nip them in the bud,
Right.
then you're going to wind up having, as a medic, not just headaches, but heartaches in terms of losing people.
And I would like to say we're not like, take an antibiotic all the time. Every time you have a little cut and scrape, get an antibiotic. I mean, what you saw me take is actually because I have a sinus infection, because I came up to the mountains and it's really dry up here, and I have allergies, and I developed a sinus infection. So I took this antibiotic, not just, out of shock and awe, but actually because I do have a sinus infection. We don't believe in overuse of antibiotics. We believe in judicious thank
use
you,
of antibiotics.
use of antibiotics when appropriate.
I blanked out for like 5 minutes, so
That's
you're,
okay.
you're forgiven.
That's okay, honey. People are going to protect you because you have doctor knowledge, no matter what.
So just a quick question then on that small antibiotic thing.
Yes.
I carry a tube of polysporin in my kit.
Okay.
And anytime I get a small nick or something just out of the essence of precaution. I just put a little bit of polysporin on it. And is there anything wrong with that? Is that okay? Or
Actually,
No, it's fine.
you as medic, you are serving not only yourself or your people in your community by not wind up getting an infection
Exactly.
yourself, then you'd be doing disservice if you didn't do
So
that.
the other,
And so
go ahead. You
the
finish.
bottom line is prevention is key, because
Right.
having to treat problems takes up a lot more supplies than preventing problems.
But I want to say one more thing. When you don't have the polysporin, when you don't have the single antibiotic ointment, use raw unprocessed honey on that cut. It will not only work as well, it may work better, because they've actually done studies that penicillin resistant staph infections will be killed by the raw unprocessed honey that will not be killed by topical antibiotics. So you might actually be doing yourself a favor. Instead of carrying the polysporin, carry, a tiny bit of raw unprocessed honey in a little container, a little packet, a little Ziploc bag, whatever it is. I do have little packets of honey that I put in every single kit. They either get small packets or they get a 3-ounce container of raw unprocessed honey. But every single one of my kits has unprocessed honey raw, because that works really well as a topical antibiotic cream and prevention for infection, or also as a treatment for infection.
Now, Darius is right when he says to flush wounds while they're still open.
Absolutely.
And that's something important. And of course, before putting your polysporin on, of course, you would want to flush out the wound and clean it
aggressively.
That should go be without saying.
Aggressive washing is absolutely number one for preventing infection.
Kyle asked for alternatives to amoxicillin if someone has an allergy. Keflex or cephalexin has a 10% cross-reactivity with amoxicillin, so not that. But doxycycline would be useful. Azithromycin would be useful. Clindamycin would be useful. Anything in the tetracycline family, erythromycin.
Doxy.
I said doxy. They're sulfa drugs would be good too. So those are some options. And we talk about antibiotics in detail in the book as well.
I love that you guys talked about after Armageddon, because that's one of my crystal clear memories that made me think like a prepper.
There you go.
I know, isn't that awesome? Us
That's
too,
good.
yeah. It came out around. We started heavily getting into this in 2009. It was a combination of Hurricane Katrina and what flu was out then? What year was that? I forget which flu it was.
Swine flu.
Swine flu. So between the two of them, we looked at each other. We said, if a bunch of people died during a crazy pandemic that could have been like the Spanish flu in 1918, we could have a real problem. And so thankfully, what we prepared for has not actually come to fruition, but a lot of things that Joe and I thought about with empty shelves and trucking and shipping infrastructure, which is now a year and a half later happening. All of these things, we actually discussed a lot of this, not being able to fly, people being isolated, nurses and doctors not going to work. Now, I will tell you that the nurses and doctors not going to work and staffing the hospitals, we thought would be an issue of the infection and quarantine and possibly death rates. We did not expect that the president of our country would be telling people that they had to be fired. And so we were going to lose 20 to 30 or 40 or 50% of our firemen and our paramedics and our police officers and our nurses and our doctors, which is going to cause more problems than we ever had with health safety. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Let's see. I see a question. Recommendations for eczema anywhere on the body. Freya, you know that there are 7 different types of eczema that we describe in the 4th edition of the Survival Medicine Handbook. Lanolin moisturizers. These are commonly used. Colloidal oatmeal is used. Some people use the 1% hydrocortisone cream. These are things that you'd be able to find, that you'd be able to buy without a prescription and store. So these are the things that would be useful for atopic eczema. There are a number of different kinds of eczema, as I mentioned, and each one of them has specific things that are better for it than for one type than another.
I will say that I sat in a lot of oatmeal baths when I was a kid from poison ivy and poison oak. Very soothing.
And that's a type of eczema. Believe it or not, it's a type of dermatitis that is similar to eczema.
Yep.
You guys have a huge library on doomandbloom.net of podcasts and information. What are some of your favorite episodes to direct new listeners to that sort of speak to your guys' way of thinking?
It's almost, we have so many hundreds and hundreds of them. And it's hard to say. What I would do is I would first send you to our YouTube channel, which is called Dr. Bones, Dr. Bones, Nurse Amy.
We're talking about the podcast, though.
I know. Then take a look at the subjects, the topics that are discussed there. Look at the video and see if this is something that you would like to know more about. And if you want to know more about that, go to blogtalkradio.com, look up the words survival medicine. Our podcast will come up. And then it has, I think, a search feature that you can plug in. I always put in, let's
keywords.
Say, survival medicine podcast, thyroid problems, or survival medicine podcast, diabetes,
bleeding,
survival medicine podcast,
right.
bleeding,
fractures,
sprains,
right. dental,
dental issues,
right, extraction.
And you can listen in to a lot of our stuff there.
Yeah, blog talk. We actually had our first thing we ever did was a podcast in October around this date. I think it was probably the 20th of 2010.
Yeah.
Or 2011, was it?
Yes.
2010?
Yes.
Which one?
2010.
2010. We were on another network. I was actually one of the producers. We did that for a year, and then we ended up with another group of preppers who was run by Dr. Prepper, which is funny because he was not a doctor and he was barely a prepper.
But he drank Dr. Pepper.
I don't know if he did that. But anyway, we did shows on his network for probably 2 more years, 1 or 2 more years. And then we just said, we're going to do it ourselves because that way we know they'll never go away and they'll always be there. So probably since 2013 or 14, every single one of the podcasts are on Blog Talk.
Probably 600, probably 500 and 600 podcasts there.
Because we know they're never going to go away.
Yeah.
If we exist, they'll exist. As long as our credit card is good.
It's a fantastic library you guys have created.
Thank you. It's a shame we missed, the first couple 2 or 3 years, but that's all right. Those were early ones. We were just learning how to do all this anyway. Probably not worth finding anyway.
We're still learning.
Oh my gosh!
I think I've regressed.
The first one we did
tonight.
here,
I've regressed.
We didn't even have Wi-Fi at this cabin. This was not like, we're talking about 2010. Wi-Fi was not like a big thing people had. I mean, this is a cabin up in the mountains. They didn't have cable Wi-Fi or anything like that. We were stealing Wi-Fi from our neighbor. So our podcast was like, but don't tell anybody.
Stealing is such a harsh word. I prefer just borrowing without consent.
I did. And then I figured people who were coming up to the mountain didn't want internet anyway. They're trying to get away from all that news and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't even have cable.
Fat chance.
I had no cable. I was like, just get away from it all. Anyway. Those were the days. Now we're connected.
So I got a question for you guys. What is the best on or off-grid way to keep your hormones and thyroid problems in check?
Okay, first thing, if you're going to be the medic and you're going to have people in your family or in your group that have thyroid problems, it's important to learn the symptoms of both high and low thyroid conditions. And of course, to be able to identify, to be able to examine the thyroid to determine whether there are lumps or nodules or things like that on there. And each, interestingly enough, we talk about exactly how to do that type of exam. And we talk about exactly what the various symptoms are of both low thyroid conditions and high thyroid conditions. And some of the symptoms can be, and signs can be pretty striking, and you don't have to be, you don't have to look under a microscope to know that somebody has some of these issues. You might consider, if in a situation where you're off the grid, you might consider desiccated porcine or bovine thyroid extracts. These are available. Some of them are over the counter. Some of them are prescription. Thyrovans is one that I think is over the counter. And these are a lot like alternative remedies. You would almost have to test whether they work for you individually, because they do vary from individual. And that's best done, honestly, in normal times. If you're thinking about using some of these natural extracts, well, basically what you should do is, whoever is dealing with your thyroid issue right now, discuss with your provider using the extract for a period of time and having them check your levels, right? Within a couple of weeks, your levels will either stay within normal range or they're going to sink like a stone. If they stay within normal range, these extracts are an option for you. If they sink like a stone, they're not. Dietary changes can be useful for some thyroid issues. For hyperthyroidism, you might consider restricting nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, other substances that alter metabolism. They're helpful. Vitamin C, B12, L-carnitine, these are thought to have a beneficial effect. The same foods, by the way, the foods that you would use for, now this is for hyperthyroidism, the same, you would probably want foods that depress your thyroid. And interestingly enough, there are foods that do that, and they are cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and spinach. For hypothyroidism, you should avoid these foods: cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and spinach. So there are some dietary things you can do. But by the way, that leads me to one other thing. If you're going to be a successful medic, you're going to have to keep your people healthy. You're going to have to keep them fed. So you, medic, should wind up learning how to garden and putting together a food, not only a food garden, but a medicinal herb garden. Find out what grows in your area and try to grow it. Believe it or not, there is a learning curve to these types of things.
Oh, yeah.
Your first attempt is not probably going to be successful, and you don't want to start a food garden or a medicinal herb garden at the time after a disaster has occurred and your people are starting to feel hungry or beginning to get sick. So these are the things that are important. And I think the medicinal herb garden is very important because if it's a long-term situation, no matter how much you've stored away in terms of medicines, then what's going to happen is you're eventually going to run out. Yep. It might be earlier, it might be later, but you're eventually going to run out. So you need to know what grows in your area that might have a beneficial effect. And so we outline at least 20-something different
I didn't count,
herbs
but
that
at
can
least
be
20.
Herbs can be used as teas.
Right. How to plant them.
Right.
How to grow them.
Herbs that you can try to extract oils from, although you need equipment for that.
Make teas from.
Right. How to grow, as you mentioned, a medicinal garden. And that's from
you get teas
master gardeners. We're master gardeners for the state of Florida through the Agricultural Extension Office. That doesn't mean that we're master gardeners for Canada. But believe it or not,
I know
agricultural.
South Florida is a lot different. You got to know
right.
The big thing is you got to know your grow zone.
Right.
So find out your grow zone first.
Right.
Get an idea. And, I grow things that are outside of my grow zone. I actually got blackberries recently. I have 2 blackberries. I do experiment. So I want to grow things that are outside of my grow zone. I had no luck with lavender. I have had no luck with a garlic. Oh, garlic is just giving me, no matter what kind of garlic I get, it just, it'll grow a green thing and maybe make a flower. And then I look underneath and there's nothing. I'm just, some things you're screwed by.
So bottom line,
by your grow zone. Like you guys aren't going to get oranges up in Canada,
Right.
I'm sorry, but I can get oranges and I have bananas and I have sugar cane.
we can grow bananas, you can grow apples, it's probably that type of thing.
They have pears, they have grapes.
So basically that's the thing you have to realize is that you are responsible for a lot of different things if you're going to keep your people healthy. And so, try to learn as many things as you possibly can. And one important one is gardening for food and gardening for medicine.
All right, and I want to say one more thing to somebody who mentioned this. We actually did keto. We do keto intermittently now, but we did keto from July 5th until about Christmas time last year when my daughter came to visit and she was doing some other diet. We were strict on it and we lost weight and your blood sugar straightened out and our blood pressure straightened out. And my cholesterol, which I have a family problem, it's genetic. My cholesterol's run in the 300s, came down to, I think, 180 something, which is unheard of. For me, for the past 36 years, I've had cholesterols over 300. I mean, literally, I should be dead. I talked to my cardiologist and I laugh. I said, I should be an experiment for you because you people freak out when someone has a cholesterol of 200 and I'm over 300 for 36 years. Like, I shouldn't be here, but I'm fine. And my stress test is good. But keto corrected his blood sugar, our blood pressures, our weight, our energy level, our thinking. It was just amazing. I know there are a lot of people that are so down on keto, but if you have faced a lifetime of eating pretty healthy and balancing your diet and watching all the labels and you just can't lose it no matter what you do, I'm telling you, keto is going to blow your mind. You probably aren't going to be the person that loses the 30 pounds in the first month like I didn't, and I was very disappointed, but give it time. Even if it's 3 or 4 pounds a month, it's more than what you were doing before, but which was probably just maintaining and not losing an ounce. Over time, you feel healthier. We had so much energy, and I just personally, I think keto is, some miracle diet that in 10 years are gonna be like everyone needs to be on keto.
Awesome.
Maybe.
Well, thanks a lot,
see you in
guys.
10 years. So I've seen this question come up a whole bunch of times in the live chat here, and I know the audio listeners as well are going to be asking, where can we in Canada get a copy of your book?
Amazon. .ca. If you want the black and white version, we do have a color version that is personally you'll receive a personally signed.
That I had a private printer do, so that's only available on our website.
A lot of people.
I have the boxes. I'm almost out of the 500 that we ordered that are number and signed. So I have to order another group because I'm shocked.
They won't be numbered. They won't be numbered, but
I want them to be available.
But
So
they'll be signed.
I'm going to order another group.
Signed to you personally.
Absolutely.
And another place,
you
guys,
at our website, store.doomandbloom.net.
So Amazon Canada, store.doomandbloom.net. And you guys are also nice enough to send a copy that we're going to give away on the Discord.
Oh, good.
So if you guys head over to the Discord, check out the giveaway section there, and I'll be posting that after the show, and that'll run for a week to give everybody enough time to get in and get signed up for it. And that is a color edition. It's number 293 of 500, and it's a signed copy as well. So I appreciate you guys sending that along.
You are very welcome.
You're very welcome. We really appreciate your having us on your show.
And we appreciate you guys coming for the third time.
And fourth time's a charm. So next year,
perfect.
Maybe.
Awesome. We'll schedule it later on.
There you go.
All right. I think that ends all the questions that we have from the panelists. We'll move into the podcast challenge.
Our advice is that you purchase Dr. and Nurse Alton's new book, the Survival Medicine Handbook, the essential guide for when help is not on the way, 4th edition, or win a free copy in the Discord. It's signed and in color, apparently, and learn how to become more medically prepared. It's such an important part of the things we think about. So this is a tremendous resource, and we're so lucky to have the Altons helping us this evening.
Right. And upcoming events, the petroleum shortages, just wait for it.
Yeah.
Deal of the week. Got Canadian Tire has the Buck brand Kingsman folding knife on sale for $10.99, regularly $50. So check that out. Can never have too many knives.
Nope.
Shout outs. In the panel. Okay. Let's say a quick shout out to Dr. Alton and Nurse Amy for coming out again for the 3rd time. We do really appreciate you guys coming out and sharing your medical knowledge and expertise with us. It's a great help to everybody who listens, and I'm sure everybody's going to take something away from tonight's episode and the last couple of you guys are on as well.
And we appreciate
Thank
everything.
you so much, everyone.
We appreciate everything you guys do for the preparedness community.
I
as
know.
well.
What an amazing group of folks you've gotten together. That's awesome.
Oh, thanks. With that, I'll bring episode number 135 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out, submit a review. It does help other people find us.
We record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you alerts when you're going live. You can contact me at Alan, that's Alan with one L, at prepperpodcast.ca.
This is what happens when you read the script verbatim.
And that handsome Scott guy will give you his email address shortly.
All right. And where can everybody find you, Joe and Amy?
Oh, well, you can find us at our website is called Doom and Bloom. Our YouTube channel is DR Bones Nurse Amy. We have Facebook, MeWe, and Mighty Networks groups, PrepperNet groups.
A lot of the media, social media, and connections is easy to find at the top of doomandbloom.net. I have all the little icons for the YouTube, the podcast, Apple, iTunes, because our blog talk is on that, the Twitter, Facebook,
Twitter
not only the
Prepper
regular
Show.
Facebook, but the group Facebook. So it's all there. We also, of course, we're on, what's those alternative ones now? MeWe.
MeWe.
I don't have an
Odyssey.
icon for MeWe up there, but we are on MeWe under Survival Medicine, but look for groups. The thing is, when you get on MeWe and you put Survival Medicine, your first result is people. So you actually have to adjust your results to groups. And when you adjust your results to groups, then it will show up Survival Medicine for MeWe.
Awesome.
But we're there too.
All right, Jeff.
Being the gray man, you can just get a hold of me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
Or on the ham radio waves now.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Scott.
You can catch me, feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. We can talk about wood gasifiers, which Kyle, I did mention earlier in the little bit about keeping the generator fueled.
Kyle's stats for everybody. All right. You can get a hold of Ian at the Island Retreat at gmail.com or the other CPP, the Canadian Patriot Podcast. They record Monday nights at 9 p.m. also on YouTube. You can find me at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me on the live chat there or at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us this evening. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning.